Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's devotion. I have Pastor Brian Jernigan with me. As you know, he shared this past Sunday. He has a wife and 3 daughters, so one man in a house full of ladies.
Indeed.
And of course, they're teenagers now, all 3 daughters,
Yes,
so
yes.
that's interesting as well. And in the midst of what he had to share Sunday, I thought it had great value, encouragement to all of us. But today he's going to talk something a little different. And so what's on your heart that you'd like to share in our devotion?
So Sunday I shared about our kids and my wife Candy and I deciding when to have children and what that meant. And I talked about how when we moved to Maryland, we knew that was time. I was finished with school and it was time for us to start our family. But a couple of years before that, we lived in North Carolina when I was in seminary. And my folks would come up to visit us regularly because I'm from North Carolina and that's where they lived. And so they would come up to visit us every so often on the weekend. And one weekend, my mom and dad came to visit, and my dad and I had a conversation, and I wanted to ask him, when did you know that it was time, or when do you know that you're ready to have children? And he looked me right in the eyes and said, if you wait until you're ready to have children, you're never going to start. And I said, wow. So over the years, as I grew older, I realized that my dad seemed to grow wiser as I grew older. And so hopefully my children are seeing that in me as well. But I'll never forget that conversation that we had. I just had him off to the side. And my dad was always one that was willing to give his opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He had the spiritual gift of discernment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I trusted his opinion. And so I went to him and just sought his advice. And that's the advice he gave us.
You know, I think there is great value. I love it when any of my 6 children or their mates ask me for advice. I consider it almost sacred because I've learned as I've gotten older, once you launch them, it's very difficult to advise them. Definitely don't control them. And you have to be careful when you see something and know they might be making a mistake or whatever, to know when to speak, when to be silent. That's their own journey, and that's part of the challenge. And there are times I've spoken up and I shouldn't have said anything. Yeah. And so it's been a journey. But when they ask me for advice, I value their asking, and I want to give them biblical, sound instruction that will increase their faith and their trust of the Lord.
Right.
I know for Shirley and I, we kind of just trusted the Lord, and 6 children just came along. And so for us, it's not like we prayed and determined is it time or whatever. It just happened, and then it happened again. And we know how it happened, but it just kept happening. And so I know this, that what I think about is for each child, there was grace. Even though at times it felt overwhelming, we had sufficient grace for whatever God gave us. And so I do know this, that if you're praying about children, know that God will give you grace for whatever He gives you. Right. I do think, though, it is wise to prepare. To prepare a home, finances, things like that. How did y'all prepare to receive once you started your family? What kind of preparations did you make? Did you read books? Was there, a home and a room? And what'd you do?
Oh, Candy probably read the What to Expect When You're Expecting book at least twice.
Okay.
When she was pregnant with Emma, our oldest. And so, and then I got advice from other male figures in my life.
Yeah.
My pastor at the time at the church that I was serving at, and some co-workers that I had there. And so she's more of the reader than I am, so she stuck through the books and I stuck to the verbal advice.
Very good. Yeah. Very good. I also know this, that as we were raising our children, I just think back about how often we weren't sure, and we did look to parents and other mature believers in the church for counsel. Mm-hmm. And how valuable it was to be a part of a church family and to be in relationship with other mature believers that had already walked the journey that we were on, and we could ask them. I think of women that came over and talked to my wife about how to nurse a child. Mm-hmm. Or we would have a child not feeling well and start getting nervous if something were seriously wrong, and we would call and ask advice. And we just had people give the best advice, and sometimes it was actually kind of logical, but when you're in the midst of it as a younger, newer parent, you're just not sure. And so I just think, be willing to ask. And then those of us that are more experienced and have raised our kids, be prepared to give advice and to have people in your life. Like, I'm thinking the value of having young people in your life, right?
Right. And I know for us, we lived away from our families being up in Maryland, so we had to rely upon people in our church at the time. well, you still talk to your parents and call them, but we had a great support system at the time when we were young parents with small children. So that's always helpful too. So just know that your church family is here to support you and to help be part of your lives as well.
Some of the dearest people I can think of over the years came and watched our children so we could have a date night.
Yeah, right.
Just to get away for a couple of hours and what that meant.
Same here.
And then we had others that came and would just maybe hang out at the home and help us with the children and nurture them. And they were consistently reinforced what we were teaching our children.
Right.
So they got a consistent message. And then I think even older, as our kids got older, they wanted less of our influence and input. And we would have people in the church that would say the same thing, and they would listen to them and not us.
Right.
And we're like, well, as long as they're listening to someone
Yep.
and they're getting good biblical sound instruction, again, going back to what you said, the value of being a part of a church family,
Right.
of being in a community of believers and people that you love and trust, that you know that they will speak good things into the life of your sons and daughters, and they'll help you along the way, right?
Right.
So yeah, the value of parents and being a good parent, a good grandparent. So are your parents still involved in your kids' lives? And
Yeah, my mom reaches out regularly, and both of Candy's parents check in with us, and we try, with technology advancing the way it has, and FaceTime and being able to video chat and things like that. That's a whole nother ballgame than what it was for us 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so now you can actually hop on and see each other and be able to communicate that way and stay caught up. And
Yeah.
social media helps too, posting pictures, and all the people that you want to see your pictures can see them and be involved in your lives that way as well.
That's good.
It's good.
That's really good. All right. Well, why don't we go to the Lord in prayer as we prepare for the day? And thanks for sharing, brother.
Sure.
We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Lord, thank you for the privilege of being parents, of entrusting children to us. And we acknowledge at times we have and still feel inadequate. Thank you that you help us. Thank you that you send others to come alongside to help us. Thank you, Lord, that you are there to strengthen us and guide us through the journey. Would you bless every parent listening this morning, that you will encourage their hearts to look to you and to look to others for godly wisdom and support. Thank you, Lord, for the family. We are grateful. Yeah. Now offer your prayers. God bless you.